I've been meaning to make this video for some time, and it's in reaction to some videos that I've seen on the lifetime allowance charge, some videos that I've seen on YouTube. And a very quick recap on the LTA, as I now call it, the lifetime allowance, is very simply a cap on the maximum amount that someone can have in their pension, and anything over this amount, which is currently just over £1 million, faces a tax penalty. There were two key elements that I picked up on from watching these videos, and the first one was the confusion between the state pension age, the age from which you can take your state pension, and the age from which you can take your personal pension. And the second was that somebody making average size pension contributions into their pension over their life would likely exceed the LTA and therefore be charged a tax penalty above that amount, and therefore it wasn't in their interest to contribute into a personal pension. So we'll take a look at that, and in addition we'll also look at the impact of someone paying the charge and where they may or may not be better off. Welcome back to all existing subscribers and anyone new to the channel. My name's Ed Bailey and I'm a chartered financial planner with over 10 years experience in financial services. Let's very quickly clear up the difference between the personal pension age and the state pension age. Now, the personal pension age is currently age 55, and this is increasing to age 57 from 2028. The state pension age is also on the move up and is currently 68 for somebody that is born after April 1978. Before that date, it is based on the date of birth. Now, historically, there's been a 10-year age gap between the personal pension age and the state pension age, the age from which you can be entitled to your state pension. So more than likely, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the personal pension age move up to age 58, and we'll have the state pension age at 68. So again, that 10-year age gap between when you can take your personal pension to when you can take your state pension. Hopefully that's nice and clear. Now, the more interesting part that I got from these videos was that there was a lot of agreement in the comments below, was that individuals shouldn't be paying into a pension due to the impact of the lifetime allowance charge. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a particular fan of any savings vehicle over another. I am a fan of saving, but in the most tax efficient way as possible, and that's the critical thing for me, is looking at and understanding where is the most tax efficient place to save based on the current rules and regulations as we find them. What I did notice with these comparisons was that they were not comparing the LTA as it would be against the individual's pension pot, which obviously they'd compounded and increased over the years, but they weren't comparing it against a like for like in terms of what the LTA would be at that point in time. They also weren't really taking into account employer pension contributions, which is essentially free money. Even at the extreme end where you had a 55% tax charge on that employer pension contribution, and based on the fact that this is well off into the future, you're still essentially getting 45% free money that you wouldn't have had if you'd opted out of the pension scheme. Now, who is likely to be impacted by this? Rishi didn't just freeze the LTA until 2026 for no reason at all. But he isn't specifically after the average pension saver that's contributing £200 a month. But those that he will catch with this are individuals with large defined benefit pension schemes, the senior NHS staff, I would say senior army officers, those with very high salaries, with very high employer pension contributions, so probably really anything in excess of sort of £80,000 a year with very high levels of employer pension contributions, and this is talking about sort of 15 to 20% employer pension contribution, or someone that just has exceptionally high investment returns. It is possible that they will be caught by this charge. So let's take a look at this. The individual that we've got here is getting a 6.5% net return. They're making monthly contributions of £200, which is about £2,400 per year. Compounding that over the years with that investment return, exactly the same. And we know that from age 57 currently, I mean, I do think it's probably going to move to age 58, but currently age 57, that individual can then access their personal pension and take the benefits from it. Now, based on that level of investment return and those contributions, that individual would have approximately £342,595 in their pension, against a lifetime allowance of £1.475 million. So what we've got with the lifetime allowance here is we've got it just capped at just over £1,000,000. And I've got two examples here. One where it's growing at 1% a year, so it's going up by CPI of 1% per year, and then the second is at 2% per year, so going up at 2% every single year without fail. So relatively low levels of CPI. And as I say, it's frozen until 2026, and then it starts increasing from that point onwards. And if it does so, then we get to about 1.475 million of lifetime allowance. We've now got a more extreme scenario here. So the individual has got a 10% net return per year, a pretty good level of return, and £2,400 annual contribution, and that annual contribution is also going up at 2% per year. So that annual contribution is also going up every single year. Now, what does that look like? So again, at age 57, that does get us closer to £1,000,000. That's 10% every year, with 2,400 going in, and that 2,400 is increasing at 2% a year. So by age 57, that 2,400 is approximately £4,800 of contribution. The pension fund itself is valued at £940,000, so just under £1,000,000. And our lifetime allowance, based on the same assumptions as before, 1% and 2%, 1% was still just under 1.5 million, so it still isn't over our fund value. It's really only in those later years that potentially we're going to cross over. So it's only really around age 61, 62 on this basis that this individual may cross over the lifetime allowance if they were to continue making those levels of contribution, and if they were to not take in any money from their pension at that point in time. So this is the crucial thing here, is that you've got an enormous amount of flexibility. Once you've actually are nearing your pension age, or you've surpassed your personal pension age, you can either take the benefits from it, so crystallize it, take the tax-free cash out, and you've then crystallized it at a level lower than the lifetime allowance. Now there is going to be a second lifetime allowance test at age 75. That's on the growth of the funds from that date that you've last crystallized to the age 75. I can go into more detail on that on maybe a very specific video on the lifetime allowance and what you can do to attempt to mitigate it. But in effect, you do have an enormous amount of control as to what you do with those benefits and how you take them out and when you crystallize them. And that you could decide earlier on, if you're nearing that level of lifetime allowance, that you could potentially stop taking pension contributions, and you might be able to come to some agreement with your employer. Now, let's look at a scenario where you are likely to go over the LTA and you're going to end up paying that charge. Let's actually look at what that looks like in practice. What I've done here is just put a personal pension up against an ISA. We've got a net payment going into the pension, and we've got a net payment going into the ISA. We've got tax relief. So I am basing this on someone being a 40% tax payer, and the total payment in is 16,667. So this has been done via salary sacrifice. So the full level of the pension contribution is being paid into the pension because it's being done by salary sacrifice. So the individual isn't just getting basic rate and then having to reclaim the other 20% via self-assessment. They're getting the full amount of pension contribution into the pension, including the full 40% tax relief. Fund after 10 years, but it doesn't really matter the period of time, actually, interestingly, in terms of the maths, but I've just done it after 10 years. Have an LTA charge, which will be 25%. So we're going to access this money via income drawdown. So we're taking it as an income. So it's a 25% LTA charge when it's above the LTA. And then you've got income tax on top of that of 20%. So we're assuming that the money going in is at 40% in terms of tax relief, and the money coming out is at 20%. Bearing in mind that somebody in retirement would need an income in excess of £50,000 a year for them to be taxed at the higher rate. So anyone getting that, that's a pretty healthy retirement income to be receiving. We've got growth of 3% net per year, and you come out with exactly the same net result. So that is if you're a high rate taxpayer going in, basic rate coming out. That's the situation would be for an LTA charge. So really not that bad, and that's a relatively common position, especially somebody later in their career and then somebody that then goes into retirement. Let's just look at it if the individual was a high rate taxpayer when they actually come to take that benefit out. The net payment out would be $10,080 under the same scenario, under the same level of growth rates, versus $13,439 via an ISA. So the thing to consider here is you've got the employer pension contributions on top of this as well, which could very easily offset that tax charge that is being applied. This is what you really need to be thinking about when you're looking at this. You're looking at your tax position going in, and you're looking at what your likely tax position will be coming out or exiting the pension, knowing that you do have quite a high degree of flexibility, especially if you're going to draw down, as to how much income you take out. The other factor to be considered when you're looking at this is the potential for the pension, if set up in the correct way, to be free of inheritance tax. So that's an additional 40% saving over and above the ISA, which would be fully taxable as far as the estate is concerned once the nil rate bands are used up. Please do let me know in the comments below should you have any questions, and see you again soon.